Hey everyone, welcome to my tutorial on how to manipulate a text file in Java. So what I'll be showing you today is how to take a text file like this, which has some random text in it, hello world, use it inside a Java program like this. It changes the text file to your text file contained hello world. There are some things that this tutorial will expect you to know beforehand. A basic understanding of how a program works, and some basic understanding of Java frameworks. Along with that, we will need a basic understanding of your computer's file structure. You will need a basic understanding of IntelliJ IDE. So the first step is to find your actual text file inside your Finder. So I have a Finder window open here, and I happen to create this text file inside a tutorial project folder. Now, when I click open this, you can see that I've written hello world. We can actually write a few more lines here. This will be the text file for my tutorial. Let's save it. Now we're going to go to our new project format. Click new project. We're going to do a Java, and then we're going to go next, next. And that first warning comes up. Make sure your documents or your Finder is organized. So we're going to go in here. We opened up to this random project, so I know I stored it in here. We go into this tutorial project folder I've made, open it there. Now what that's going to do is it's going to name our project tutorial project. That works for me, and we're going to click finish. We see that our example text is right up here in the corner. Create a quick docs folder, and so we're going to go down to directory, create a docs folder. Now that docs folder came up, and then we're going to move this into the docs folder and click refactor. Drop that down. It's under example.txt. Now we have our source folder, and of course that's where we're going to have our main class. So we're just going to name it main. There are a few things that we will need to add to this main page. The first thing is importing our libraries that we will be using. So you really only need one import message, and we're going to be importing the Java IO structure. We can just import that whole library. Now I'm just going to write a quick message because it's important to do documentation. This project. Now inside our main class, of course, we need our main method, public static void main. And now we're going to set up our variables. Our first variable is our string, and we need our file path. We will need another string, and that's going to be our input, which will take every individual line. We will need a string builder, and this will be converting each line of the text file into a grander string. So we're going to name that input string builder. And we will need another string for the output. We will need a file reader object. We're going to name that fr. Then we will need a file writer object, fw, and we will need a buffered object. We're going to name that br, and we will need a buffered writer object, bw. And now we can go back to our file path. Because we have kept it organized and we know it's in the docs folder here, we can just write that in. All we need is the local file path, .txt, and we can confirm that by looking up here. We have the docs and the example.txt, and then we're going to put that in quotes because it is a string. And then in our string builder, we're going to make a new string builder object, and we're going to initialize it with your text file contained, and then a \n, which will create a new line. So now we need to add our try-catch method. And the reason for a try-catch method is to collect IO exceptions. This is where our next warning is. If you do not add a try-catch method, your code will not compile correctly. Now we're going to be catching an IO exception, and we can just label that E. And what we want to do is print a simple message to the terminal. We're going to say file not found, because that will be the most common IO exception, and it usually has to do with your file path not being accurate. The next step is to set up our file reader. And we want to do file reader equals new file reader. And this is where our file path goes, along with our buffered reader equals new buffered reader. And this is where our file reader goes. The next step will be reading the files, and then we're going to make a while loop. We're going to set the input equal to buffered reader dot read line does not equal null, and then we're going to do an input string builder and add that line to the end along with a input string builder, and we need a new line inside here. So we have that \n. Now we need to convert our string builder back to a string. And here is our output equals input string builder dot to string, because we're converting it to a string. We now need to close our file reader, which will be br.close. We are setting up our file writer, which will be fw, the same as our file reader, but with the file writer class. And before I go on, I want to add another warning. If you do not close the file reader, this file will not be able to be opened by the file writer, and therefore it will not write anything to the new file, which is why we need that br close line right here. Next, we need our buffered writer there, and we are now writing our code, bw.write, and this brings us to our last warning, bw.close. If you do not include this buffered writer.close, it will not fully write and save the file. It's the same as clicking File Save in a Word document. You need to close the file in order for it to be accessed by anything else. Otherwise, it will leave you with an empty file. Now, we see that our docs example looks like this. So we're going to run it. It's going to build, process finished, and then we go back into the example, and we see it's a new code your text file contained, and then what we had in it before. For any further information, you can visit the Java documentation, which is the works cited listed below.